What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Homie Hangout, where we help others move in excellence. If it's your first time here, I encourage you to look around. Yeah, I've been in the streets and I've been in prison, and some of the lessons I've learned along the way and experiences is reflected in the content, but also paroled in December of 2005. So the better part of the last 16 years, I've spent trying to advance a culture of healing and transformation and justice from a community perspective all around the country. And so there's interviews, we talk about relationships, spirituality, prison in the streets and violence and gangs and whatnot, legal stuff, relationships, you name it. So look around. If it's the kind of stuff you're into, I encourage you to subscribe, of course, hit the bell notification so you can see future videos I post. And please tap in the comments, excuse me, tap in the comments. Let me know where you guys are from. Give me some ideas of stuff you want to hear about. The idea that Hangout is to build some sense of community amongst folks, right? So anyway, moving on to the topic today. So East Palo Alto is a small community, like 2.2, 2.5 square miles in the Bay Area. It has a reputation in the Bay Area and beyond because it was the murder capital of the United States in 1992. Now, violence is nowhere near the level that it was then, in part because of gentrification in recent years. But what I'm going to talk about happened back in 2011. And it actually involves a span of time from 2008, on forward. But I'm not going to break all that down in this video in particular. And so East Palo Alto is divided up into neighborhoods. You got the Midtown, which is roughly half of the city. And then you have the Gardens, you have the Village, you have Over the Ramp, which is a small little area of mostly apartments that starts leading into actual Palo Alto, which is a different city and very wealthy. And then you have the Flutter, which is, a couple blocks tucked at the top of the mid, sort of. So this conflict that had been going on, there was one involving Midtown and Eastern Menlo Park, which borders it, and the Village neighborhood, which is, a pretty small neighborhood, but has a large reputation. So in 2011, I had just left. I just left East Palo Alto. I lived out there for years. I worked with the community on various levels, worked with young folks, taught in schools, was out on the streets, responded to the homicides, normally knew the people that were shooting and the people getting shot, and, just building programs, curriculums, whatnot. Again, some of that is for maybe another video. And so I moved out, like I said, in late 2011. And this incident happened in December 2011. And so I was gone maybe a few months. But the individuals involved were folks that I had a long history with, dating back to at least 2008. And they were youngsters, right? And so what had happened was there was a Facebook post that was made in December of 2011 by somebody from the Midtown Menlo side of town, right, which was beefing with the Village. And it was a violent beef. Cats were getting shot back and forth. And again, that maybe I'll break that down in the future. But this individual made a Facebook post, something along the lines of, my whole squad is with it. And they'll get down from the shoulders, not just pistols. And somebody from the Village responded. Now, mind you, these folks were Facebook friends, right? A lot of these young folks, we're talking, late teens, right? 18, 19. And they had grown up together and they knew each other. And at one point, there wasn't such a great separation between them. And that often happens in a neighborhood. Kids grow up, they're playing football with each other or against each other, and everything's fine. And especially in places small as East Palo Alto, people move around, right? You move 5 streets over, you could be in a whole different section, technically speaking. A lot of families kind of grew in East Palo Alto, has a long legacy, especially in the Black community at the time. And so people would have relatives that lived in different sections of the town. Anyways, these folks had a history. They were very familiar with each other. The majority of the folks involved in this era of the Midtown Village beef, had knowledge, of each other and had some cordial relationships earlier on in their lives. Things go haywire. People start, getting a little bit older, locking in with their section, looking for a conflict. Conflict happens, people die, and all of a sudden people are on their teams, and now they're violent, mortal, to the death enemies. And so when this individual makes this post, somebody from the Village, right, a young man known as Box, Brandon Bradford, he was 19 years old. he replied and said, something along the lines of, I checked the stats, right? And meaning, I don't really think that everybody from your squad is with the business from the shoulders. And so the original person that posted it was like, "What you mean? Who?" And Box named a couple people that were from that side of town. So those people got tagged in a post. Hey man, what you got to say? And people are laughing in these comments, right? There's a joking back and forth. And now there's more village cats in the comments, and there's more midtown cats in the comments, and there's females in the comments, and there's people from the gardens, and pretty soon this exchange has literally thousands upon thousands of comments. And I'm Facebook friends with everybody at the time, and so I'm watching this. And I actually got on the phone and called somebody that was still in East Palo Alto that I worked with a lot, who knew all these folks and knew a lot of these folks even better than I did, and said, "Look, man, somebody's gonna mess around and get killed, right? Somebody's gonna get hurt," because the conversation digressed into, into some set tripping, but also like bringing up old beefs. Cass was talking about, babies' daddies when they had kids that were, 8, 9, 10 years old, and reigniting conflicts, and people from out of town were jumping in the comments because they're connected to people because they have a history at EPA, and it went bananas, flat out bananas. But keep in mind where this started, right? It started with an unnecessary post about, "Hey man, my squad's with it," right? And my squad will hit toes. And somebody in a relatively playful way, right? I knew Box, right? In a relatively playful way, "Nah, bro, cut it out now. Like, not all your team is like that." And actually called out the folks that he was talking about. And to be honest, them folks was not gonna fight with Box. And Box was not a big guy. Box was not a gangster. He liked to smoke weed, man. He was from the village, but it was a situation where everybody that lived in the village and was growing up there was from the village. Not everybody was shooters from the village. Not everybody was really on the grind, but they were all from the village, right? And so Box was connected with some folks that were more engaged, and he had some family and stuff that had a legacy out there. And a lot of those folks, those older folks, were kind of pulling back. They had done theirs, they had faced their consequences, and they were kind of laying low. And they had been laying low throughout this conflict that had been happening between the Midtown cats, right, falling up under the name Taliban, and the village cats. And so, yeah, these dudes jump in. There's offers made. Hey, we could meet up here. We could meet up there. Where you want to meet up? What you want to do? There was an effort to resolve this from the shoulders, which is what the post started about. But some of the folks that was called out didn't want to do that, and so, and there was a lot of tag-alongs. There was a lot of folks hanging around a couple particular people that rep Taliban because those dudes were with the business. But not everybody was with the business. No neighborhood has everybody with the business in that regard. And so it's, there's concern. And eventually that Facebook post is taken down, right? And then, like I said, this is 10 years ago this month. So there's no trace of it, it's gone. And a few days later, Box is on the 2400 block of Gonzaga in the heart of the village, standing outside around noon, right? Just broad daylight, with his homeboy Taiwan, right? I knew Wani too, Taiwan. And shots ring out. And Box gets killed. And they find Taiwan a short time later. He was actually on my street. I lived on 100 block of Rabina. They found him on the 100 block of Rabina, allegedly with a banger and certainly with a gunshot. And yeah, I'll leave that situation as that, right? The folks who shot Box were never, were never charged. There wound up being a Sunny Day indictment, a couple years later, that involved a ton of shootings that had happened between these two groups on both ends. And that, Box's murder was not roped into the Sunny Day. Personally, I believe it's because folks had gotten killed during the conflict by the time it went to court. And some people already had bodies on. You had a person in particular that was already doing time for a murder somewhere else and had a couple other murders already lined up should he ever get out from this homicide. He's got homicides all over the place, right? And so I think the state just didn't put in effort, unfortunately, when it came to Box's when it came to Box's murder. And the reason that this hit me was for a couple of reasons, man. Like I said, I'd known Box for some years. We were not best friends, right? I worked with a lot of youngsters. You know, I was significantly older than them. So to say that they were my friends, quote unquote, is a little bit of a stretch. You know, the relationship was different. I would see them on the block. I would engage with them in all kinds of different aspects. We had a community gathering where we had 100, 150 predominantly Black kids come every week. And Box was part of that group. And a lot of, you know, cats from the Ville were part of that group. And once upon a time, a lot of people from Mid Menlo were a part of that group as well. And so I can remember a few things with Box. We went on a snow trip. We had gotten some funding, and there was a Young Life cabin up in Tahoe. And so we brought the youngsters up there to the snow to stay in this cabin. And when we got there, we went to Heavenly Ski Resort, I guess. I'm not sure what you call it. Now, most of us had never seen the snow. And so I'm driving, you know, this big red Suburban. Those that were in East Palo Alto at the time will recognize it. I was driving a big red Suburban. I had a bunch of youngsters in the car. We're slapping music. We're having a good time. We're getting up the mountain. We start to see snow. Somebody makes a comment that it looks like very pure powder, right? Very pure Coke. It was probably Box that said that, to be honest. That's the kind of guy he was, man. Box had jokes. Box had jokes all day long. And a smile that would light up a room, right? Just one of those smiles, right? And the girls love Box, right? The girls was all over him, kind of little short dude, and had a little baby face to him, right? And so we get up there and we take this gondola ride. And I've never been on a gondola, no one's been on a gondola. And so here we are, a whole gondola full of hood dudes, right? Beanies, ski masks, scarves over their faces long before COVID, right? Dreadlocks, some people got grills. And there's one white lady that's in the gondola, and I remember she's wearing a white and pink, like brand new. She looked like she was out of a ski catalog, right? She had her little goggles and her snowboard, I think it was, and she's riding, and she was scared to death. She was spooked. Because our squad did not look like, apparently, a squad that goes to Heavenly Ski Resort very often. So we're riding this gondola, and there's a mountain. And it looks like we're gonna hit this mountain. And the youngsters go crazy, man. Hey, bus driver, right? Stop the ride. We're gonna hit the mountain, man. They're trying to kill us. They don't like Black folks up here, boy. Look at them. And just wilding out, man, spooked. The gondola's shaking. Everybody's, oh man, calm down. And you know, obviously we don't hit the mountain, right? And as soon as it becomes clear that we're not gonna hit the mountain, they all start cracking up laughing, right? And they're hugging and laughing. Oh, bro, you were scared, they got you, this snap. We're having fun. And all these young folks come from the turf. They come from the trenches. They've all experienced trauma. They've all experienced hardship. They've all witnessed violence. They're all living in some degree of poverty. They're all struggling. And they're all trying. They're all doing their best. If they had no interest in doing something different, they'd still be on the block. They didn't have to get on the bus with us. They didn't have to get in the truck with us. They didn't have to go, right? They chose to. And more people wanted to go than what we had room for, to be honest. And so, man, we had fun. We went to an ice skating rink up there. The youngsters there was like a little DJ setup. The youngsters took over. They took the aux cable, plugged it into their phones, and was slapping. So all of a sudden, we got Jay Stalin and Filthy Rich, and everybody sliding around like bowling balls on the ice. None of us know what the hell we're doing, but we're laughing and having a good time. And I looked at a picture from that event today, and sure enough, there's Box, and he's smiling, and that's what we were trying to do, right? Get these young folks some new experiences, get them out of the element, give them a break, give them some fucking fresh air for a minute. And it was great for me because coming from where I come from and my lived experience, it was different than the other leaders in the group. All this stuff was new to me too, you know, and so I was learning and experiencing right along with them. There was another time, a couple years later, we had gone to this big camp called Woodleaf, which is out in the mountains. And this is a situation that I regret, and that's haunted me for the last 10 years. So we had told everybody ahead of time, don't bring no trees. Don't bring no trees. It's not that we necessarily care that people smoke trees, but you can't smoke trees at this Christian camp, right? And East Palo Alto had a history at this Christian camp where there was times in the past we didn't necessarily play nice with others. I wasn't around then, but it was well known, and so it was kind of a privilege that we were even getting to get re-invited, right? That's a dope camp, man. Zip lines and playing, all you know, all this other stuff. I'll break down some of the vacations that we took with these youngsters in another video, but it's safe to say everybody's looking forward to it, right? And it's co-ed. We got, you know, we're bringing boys from the hood, we're bringing girls from the hood, and that was the first time I had, you know, the organization I worked for had a long history working with the Black community, and I worked predominantly with the Latino community, EPA, which was growing and was the largest demographic there. But we were really trying to bridge those two groups as well. And so this trip was one of those, you know, and the Mexican Chicano cats I had living at my house was on their way, right? And we all kind of went up there, and it was beautiful. Now, the Box was on that bus. There was also a dude from the mid who had just lost a very, very good friend of his in Paris Meacham, who had gotten killed. And there was a couple other village cats there, you know, so there was a little bit of tension, but not tension with Box. Box wasn't beefing with nobody. You know, he's Box. He don't care. He wasn't out there like that in that conflict. And so we go and long story short, man, they had us coming up there a day ahead of time. And so we had to pause. So we pull off in Sac and we get this little hotel. And so we got a whole floor of the hotel for just us. We got a squad. We're deep. So we get a whole floor. Now, mind you, we had emphasized with these dudes, man, don't bring no weed. And the ladies too. Don't bring trees. Don't bring trees. Don't bring trees. They was all high getting on the thing. That's fine. Just don't bring trees. And sure enough, we're in the room and the whole floor starts smelling like weed. And we're the only ones up there. And the hotel staff is tripping. They're like, hey, what's going on? We're going to have to ask you guys to leave. It's late at night. We got nowhere to go. We got this big old group of people. And so some of the people in the group wind up telling. And sure enough, it's Box, and I believe Taiwan was a part of that too. And they copped to it. Yeah, man, we brought the trees. And leadership sat down and talked about what we're going to do. Now, Box's dad had just died prior to this trip. And that's one of the reasons it was really important for all of us that he came. And there was some question if he was going to come or not. And we were praying and hoping that he would, and he did. And so like, what do we do, right? And the decision was made, Box got to go home. Box and Taiwan got to go home, man. They brought the trees up here. And I know that every leader regrets that decision in some form or fashion. And I'm actually the one that drove them halfway, right? Some other cat from EPA drove up halfway. Woodley was far away, drove up halfway. We drove the other half, met in the middle. And we're driving. I remember Boss getting at me like, man, Jay, I didn't think you was like that. I didn't think you was like that, man. Like you with that shit. And I was like, bro, that on me. You know what I mean? There's no executive decision on my part, bro. I'm just going with how it goes. But you knew, homie, like you got caught slipping. Even if you're gonna smoke, you're gonna bring some trees, okay? But to just smoke out the floor, like what was you thinking? That's a rookie move. Like you set yourself up. And so he was upset, right? And I was upset too. And I didn't want them to be upset with me. Um, it, but I understood why the decision was made also. And I'm gonna rock with the team, right? I had no idea what was gonna happen. And it didn't happen right after that. But I think, man, I think of the person that was friends with Paris. And and it was a transformative camp for him. He got a little bit of healing around that. And man, what would have happened with Box? But at the end of the day, he didn't get killed because he was wilding out. He got killed behind some social media. Yes, there's more to the background, right? There's hood conflict. So it wasn't random. But had he not replied to that comment on Facebook, I don't think he was anywhere near the top of the list of the targets for them cats from the other side. But he called their bluff, and feelings got hurt. And you heard of young folks feeling with guns, you liable to to get it. And so I share this story um, today. 10 years ago was when Box had his memorial. I wasn't able to attend. I was living in Florida. I came back to the Bay Area shortly after that. I came back to the Bay in 2012, and 2012 was a very violent year as well, and it kicked up. It kicked up rough, and Box's death, I would say, and some may agree, and some may not. And if you're familiar with the situation, you feel like tapping in the comments, go for it, right? Um, but I would say that his death, his murder, was a shift in the conflict. Um, there were some people that rock with the Taliban side. That when Box got killed was like, nah, bro, ain't rocking with y'all anymore. And in fact, we got funk now, right? There were some folks that have been trying to stay out of the fray, who when that happened, they jumped in it. They felt the need to jump in it. And so there was a lot of consequences behind Box getting killed. And when I break down the Sunny Day indictment, I'll get into some of that. Um, it's people got to be careful. This was 10 years ago, and social media has only gotten bigger. And Box wasn't a troll, and the dude who made the initial post wasn't a troll. So I don't want to put them in that category. But it was BSing. They was kind of instigating. I was kind of pushing little buttons, and it ended how it ended. And it didn't need to. And so for those of you that are on social media, and if you're watching this, YouTube is a social media platform. Be careful. Some people seem to think that what happens behind a keyboard doesn't translate to the streets, and that is far from the truth. This is just one of many examples. That is far from the truth. Anybody can say anything on a computer, right? Anybody could type anything. Anybody could feel any type of way. But you don't know how the people on the receiving end of what you're talking about are gonna feel. And anybody outside of social media can also do anything. Don't put anything past anybody these days, right? So be careful. And maybe you see something online that somebody posts and you feel like calling their bluff. And you might be right. Man, you ain't really with the shit like that. Knock it off. What can happen from that? You know? You gotta be careful, right? Oh, this is funny. Let me just, get on this person. It's comedy. It's just entertainment. It's just entertainment. It's not entertaining when you got holes in your body that God didn't put there, man. It's not entertaining when your family is mourning you. It's not entertaining when this month I saw social media post after social media post. His death traumatized some folks. Really traumatized people, not just his blood family. But he had some homeboys, man, that loved him and he loved them. And most of us, I think, at least myself, I know what it's like to lose people close to me in the streets, as a teenager due to violence. And it haunts you and it sits with you. And the numbers add up and the bodies add up. And it's bullshit, man. It's bullshit. And now you find yourselves 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, living your life. And you're still like, man, I wish my guy was here, you know? Um, and on the flip side, don't don't let yourself get turned into a shooter, man, when you're not. Not that you can't be. There's nothing tough about being a shooter, right? Uh, I've shot somebody at least once, right? I went to prison for it. Um, and it wasn't one of many clapping somebody, and it wasn't a situation where I was getting busted back and just, randomly got a shot off and it happened to hit somebody. It was intentional. I set out to hurt somebody and I see them and I did. And I'm not proud of that and I'm not bragging about that. That doesn't make me a gangster. That doesn't make me cool or tough or nothing else. Um, the violence that I've been involved in, man, I live with to this day. And and I don't wish that on anybody either. So it's not just about the person getting killed. It's also about the person that's on the assaulting end. Something changes in you. It's easy to pull a trigger. Your average 10-year-old has the strength in their hand to pull a trigger. Um, it's not difficult. And the more you do it, the easier it gets, unfortunately. And that gets dangerous, man, for our communities and for our families. And so this is just a cautionary tale, man. In part, rest in peace, Box. He shouldn't have gone out that way. He didn't need to go out that way. In my opinion, he didn't deserve to go out that way. Uh, I'm admittedly a little bit partial. I never repped either one of those hoods, and that was overwhelmingly a black thing, right? That's not my business. But I was out there picking up the pieces, you know. Um, I was out there when Baker got killed. I was out there. I was out there, and I was watching the trauma, and I was watching the heartache, and I didn't feel it near as much as a lot of other people did because that was their guy, right? And so be careful. Be careful how you conduct yourself online. Be careful on the buttons you press on the keyboard. Be careful of who you get in an argument with because you never know. And pick your battles. In life, you should pick your battles, but especially online, and especially when you're dealing with people that you're not going to see face to face, or you don't think you're going to see face to face, or people that aren't really significant in your life. Why? Why invest that much energy? And and the more energy you invest, man, the more it kind of raises up, and it can get out of control. And it got out of control, in December 2011, man, December 4th, and it's unfortunate, So that's it. That's my spiel for today, and I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I hope you take the word of caution. I don't know everything. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm not trying to dog anybody or put anybody down. I just don't want to see more people hurt, and especially senseless violence. And that was fucking senseless. No matter how you cut it, that was senseless. And and it was not a laughing matter. There was a lot of laughs in the comments. There was joking. It was almost friendly at first. I wouldn't go so far as to say Box and this dude were actively friends at the moment, but they knew each other. They were familiar. And everybody else jumping in, they knew the cats on the other side. They knew the other people in the comments. So there was a lot of instigating from people. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Don't fall for that shit, man, because people will instigate a conflict that they have no skin in the game. They will promote you engaging. Oh, you gonna let that happen? Ooh, you gonna hear that? Ooh, you're not gonna do nothing? Don't do that to people. Don't do that because you don't face the consequences of what they do. But you have some responsibility. If you gassing somebody up and you pumping them up, then some of that blood or some of that time rests on your hands too. And back up. And if you hear that voice in your ear, tell him, man, what you gonna do? Right? What you gonna do? Because if you ain't gonna do nothing, stop woofing on me like for me to do something. That's my advice, man. Help others move in excellence. Help yourself at the same time. That's what homies do. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Be blessed.